Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you a chilling and tragic story that took place in a peaceful rural area in the American heartland. A place where endless cornfields stretch as far as the eye can see, and large-scale livestock farms are built side by side, seeming to be symbols of prosperity and abundance. But it was in such a peaceful place that a horrifying crime secretly unfolded and was concealed in a most vicious way. It is a stark warning about illicit relationships, blind desires, and the moral decay that can turn people into monsters. The net of heaven is wide. Can a crime be hidden forever? Let's find the answer together through this true story. On an afternoon in late July 2018, at a county sheriff's office, an elderly man with a gaunt face and eyes filled with anxiety came to report his son missing. He was Mr. James, a heartbroken father, and the missing person was his son, John, 35, the owner of one of the largest pig farms in the region. Mr. James stated that for over a month, he and his family had been completely unable to contact his son. "My son, John, he's a hard-working kid. He never goes away for more than a day without letting the family know. But this time, it's been over a month. I was so worried that I went to his farm to ask my daughter-in-law," Mr. James explained to the detectives. When asked what his daughter-in-law, Sarah, had told him, Mr. James sighed, helpless. She said that John had lost a lot of money in business, got into gambling, and was in a huge amount of debt. After being threatened by gangsters, he had to flee south. She even cried, saying she was left alone, struggling to pay off her husband's debts while managing the entire farm. The story of a man who goes broke from gambling and has to run from criminals is not uncommon. But with a father's intuition, Mr. James didn't believe it. "He knows my son's personality. He might not be the smartest, but he's definitely not a gambler. His farm was doing great. The pigs were almost ready for market. There's no reason for him to go broke. I suspect there's something fishy going on here. Please, I ask you to help my family investigate." The father's heartfelt testimony and uneasy premonition caught the special attention of Detective Chief Miller. He decided to immediately proceed with verification. A task force led by him went to John's pig farm. The farm was very large and modern, isolated in the middle of a field, a complete contradiction to the story of bankruptcy. When the detectives arrived, they found Sarah, 32, the missing man's wife, directing several workers. She was a beautiful woman, but her face showed a clear sense of exhaustion and weariness. When confronted by the police, Sarah perfectly played the role of a pathetic wife, tearfully recounting the detailed story of her husband's gambling addiction, mounting debts, and his subsequent flight. While talking to Sarah, the detectives also noticed a worker on the farm. He was a man around 30, with a muscular, strong build, named Mike. He appeared to be an extremely loyal and dedicated employee, always by his boss's side, supporting her words and comforting her. The initial investigation seemed to hit a dead end. The case of John's disappearance was at risk of being put on hold, but Detective Miller didn't give up. He felt something was off about this farm. The wife Sarah's act was too perfect. Her grief seemed very real, but sometimes he caught small moments in her eyes of a chilling coldness. And the worker Mike, his dedication was also a bit excessive. A love triangle is always a classic motive for murder. Sarah and Mike's testimonies matched too well, as if they had been rehearsed. Detective Miller decided to pursue a different angle. He ordered a team of plainclothes officers to set up a secret surveillance point day and night. He said, "I want to know what those two are really doing when we're not there." The secret surveillance was deployed with extreme caution. The officers had to endure the sweltering heat, mosquitoes, and the tiring silence of waiting. In the first few days, the reports described only the daily activities of a farm. Sarah was still a strong and resourceful woman, and Mike still appeared to be a capable right-hand man, a loyal partner. The relationship between the two in broad daylight was a completely innocent one between an employer and employee. But the officers persisted. They believed that a person's true face often only reveals itself after dark, and they were right. On the 5th night of the 2nd week of surveillance, their patience finally paid off. Through a high-resolution night vision lens, at around 11 p.m., when the entire farm had gone to sleep, the officers observed an unbelievable scene. The door to the workers' quarters where Mike lived creaked open. Mike, after carefully looking around, snuck out. He went straight to the back door of the main house where his boss, Sarah, was staying. The door was opened from inside quietly. He slipped in and didn't come out until it was almost morning. This action was recorded clearly and was repeated for several consecutive nights afterwards. The images and videos recording these midnight rendezvous became irrefutable evidence. Sarah and Mike were lovers. The entire story of the pathetic wife and the loyal worker was just a play staged to deceive everyone. The missing person case was now almost certainly a murder case. But they were still missing the most crucial piece of the puzzle: physical evidence. A secret affair and a suspicious lie, while highly incriminating, were not enough to convict them of murder. A new plan was devised. A task force would impersonate officials from the County Agricultural Extension Center, coming to the farm under the guise of providing livestock breeding guidance and taking soil and water samples. This cover would allow them to move legally throughout the entire farm to look for initial clues. The next day, the special task force was present at the farm. Sarah and Mike were a bit surprised but couldn't refuse a visit from county officials. While one officer, disguised as an agricultural expert, kept Sarah and Mike occupied in the barn area, 2 other officers began a silent search. They walked around the main house, observing every detail. The house was quite clean, with no unusual signs. They proceeded to the backyard, where there was a large kitchen used for cooking feed for the pigs. The forensic technician, with his professional eye, immediately noticed the wood-burning stove. On the outside, it looked no different from any other. But when he bent down to look inside the furnace, he discovered a very strange detail. The layer of ash at the bottom of the furnace had an inconsistent color. Mixed in with the familiar gray-black color of wood ash were many tiny white fragments with an unusual hardness and shape. He carefully used a specialized pair of tweezers to pick up a few of these white fragments. He examined them under the sunlight. They had a porous structure and looked like pieces of bone that had been burned at a very high temperature. "Found it," he whispered to his partner. The suspicious ashes were immediately sent to the Forensic Science Institute for analysis. A few days later, the report came back. It turned the task force's suspicions into a horrifying truth. Experts confirmed that the white fragments were human bone fragments that had been burned and calcified at an extremely high temperature. Based on the fragments of a skull and jawbone found, they could determine that they belonged to an adult male victim. The missing person case was now officially confirmed as a murder and incineration. The main crime scene was none other than the farm's wood-burning kitchen. Detective Miller knew it was time to end the wicked lover's charade. A plan for the simultaneous arrest of Sarah and Mike was meticulously drawn up. The task force decided to act in the middle of the night, a time when the suspects were least vigilant, and also the time the surveillance team had confirmed that Mike frequently snuck into his boss's house. That night, under a light drizzle, the air became damp and cold. The police force moved silently in the dark, surrounding the entire farm. At exactly 1 a.m., when the surveillance team confirmed via radio that the suspect Mike had entered the main house, Detective Miller gave the order to move in. When the bedroom door was thrown open, a dirty scene was revealed to the officers. Sarah and Mike were entangled on the very bed of the husband they had murdered. Caught red-handed, both had no spirit left to resist. They could only frantically grab a blanket to cover their naked bodies in their shame. At the police station, the 2 lovers were separated for questioning in 2 different rooms. Faced with irrefutable evidence, from the surveillance footage to the forensic results of the human bone fragments found in the stove ash,
Sarah's wall of defense completely crumbled. She finally bowed her head and confessed to the entire criminal plot with her lover. Sarah said that her husband John was a kind, hard-working man, but also somewhat emotionally distant. She felt lonely and empty. And then Mike appeared, a younger man, strong and charismatic. He saw the thirst for affection in his boss's eyes. They plunged into a wrong and secret affair. As their feelings deepened, John's existence became a thorn in their side. According to Sarah's testimony, it was Mike who initiated the plan to kill her husband. He said that as soon as John disappeared, we could be together openly without having to hide and be afraid. On that fateful night, after dinner, Sarah secretly put a powerful dose of sleeping pills into her husband's glass of water. When John was affected by the drug and fell into a deep sleep, Sarah gave Mike the signal. The lover snuck into the house, and it was he who used a large mortar to press down firmly on John's face until he stopped breathing. After committing the crime, they faced the biggest problem: disposing of the body. Sarah trembled, her face pale as she recalled the horrifying scene. He said the best way for a person to disappear completely is to not leave anything that can be identified. Sarah's confession revealed a macabre act of body disposal that was unimaginable. She testified that after killing John, Mike dragged the body to the back kitchen. There, with a chilling calmness, he used the sharp cleavers the family used for butchering pigs to dismember the victim. He said that human meat is just like pig meat, and the best way to dispose of it is to turn it into food for the pigs. And then a horrifying act took place. Mike used the industrial meat grinder to grind up the victim's flesh and mixed it with cornmeal and rice bran to create a mixed feed. He then took that special feed and gave it to the pigs on the farm. He turned these innocent animals into accomplices, into machines for disposing of their crime. All were for the bones, he didn't miss a thing. He used a large wood-burning stove, started a huge fire, and put all of the victims' bones into it. He burned them for many hours until the bones turned to ash. Afterward, he took all the ash, mixed it with normal kitchen ash, and scattered it around the base of the trees in the garden. He believed that by doing so, no one would be able to find even the smallest bone fragment of the victim.
A few months later, the county court held the preliminary hearing. The case of a wife and her lover killing her husband and disposing of his body by feeding it to pigs shocked public opinion. In court, Sarah and Mike constantly blamed each other. But in the face of irrefutable evidence, all their justifications became meaningless. With his role as an active accomplice who directly committed the murder and masterminded the body disposal, the defendant Mike received the most severe sentence, the death penalty. The defendant Sarah, as the mastermind, received a commensurate sentence of life in prison. The verdict was announced, justice was served, but the tragedy will forever haunt them. John's family pig farm, after the crime was exposed, was sealed and abandoned. The pigs, the innocent animals that had been turned into tools for disposal, were also culled according to regulations. What was once a prosperous farm is now just a dead land, a gruesome testament to an unforgivable crime. Through this tragic story, we can see the horrifying tragedies that can arise from an illicit, wrongful relationship. It is a costly warning that loneliness in a marriage can become fertile ground for crime to germinate, and that greed and lust can turn people into monsters. The case shows that crime sometimes doesn't just stop at taking a life, but is also the most vicious destruction of humanity. So after hearing this story, what are your thoughts on the value of marriage and fidelity? Do you believe that wrongdoers will always have to pay for their sins? Please leave a comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories.